with the gopi.
Recording is on.
Oh, okay. Recording is on. So the story of Radha Krishna is has to be considered in the perspective of Rasa Leela. Rasa Leela is not just one night dancing. Okay. We have in the month of Kartika, we celebrate the Rasa Leela of Krishna, but that's not just one night dancing. It's the entire story of Krishna, especially Krishna in Vrindavan, that is a very dense and strong with rasas or sentiments, feelings, devotional feelings. So the word Leela, the definition of Leela is used also in modern Indian languages to refer to a theater performance, dramatic performance, usually based on dance in the expression of feelings and stories, like the Abhinaya. If we know a little bit about Indian classical dance, we can understand better what is the meaning of Leela. Now, Leela applies mostly to the activities of the avatars. The avatars don't need to go through birth, activities, death, etc. The avatars are on the liberated level. They're not ordinary people, and they're definitely not conditioned people. Avatar is a divine manifestation that is in complete control of any situation, even when it seems that the avatar and the companions of the avatars are going through difficulties, apparently pain, defeats, confusion, and everything. It's all in the play. It's all in the theatrical performance for the purpose of attracting conditioned souls to remember about the activities of God, and to give teachings through examples and precepts. Until now, this is clear.
Yes.
Okay. So the why God comes into this world as avatar. First of all, because we can, as conditioned souls, we can become purified and attracted by listening, reading, watching the demonstration, the dramatic performance of these activities that the avatar and the companions of the avatars are manifesting. And the teaching through precept and example is a demonstration of important principles. Not only teachings proper, which we find plenty, in all the Leela, but also the demonstration. As for example, we can see what to do, what not to do. What is the effect of choices and behaviors? What will happen if we make a choice, a similar choice in similar situations? So, this is all for our benefit. In fact, the avatar doesn't need to do anything. Krishna is saying very clearly, I do not desire to achieve anything. I don't need anything, but still I am working, I'm acting, I am performing actions as a duty to help other people for the benefit of the general people. So this is the point of the avatar. In all the avatars, Krishna also in Gita is explaining, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadushkitam dharma samstapanat. It means that God, the avatars appear to protect the good people, to destroy the evildoers, and to establish the principles of dharma. The translation, there are some bad translations of this verse, but the correct translation has nothing to do with the faith. I've seen I've seen translations such as the sadhus. The word sadhu is translated as devotees, faithful people, believers, faiths, which is very misleading. And in the same way, the dushkritina, which is actually literally evildoers, people who do bad things, has been translated as atheists or miscreants, non-believers. So we can understand where that kind of translation is coming from and where it is going. But anyway, so the protection that God is giving to the sadhus through the avatar is not necessarily about saving them from death, because as we see also in Gita, anyone who has taken birth also has to die. So there's no no way out. It's not that if God protects us, we are never going to die. So what is the protection? Also, it is not the protection, this paritranayam is not about protecting from losses, because also everything is lost. Nothing stays forever. So what is God protecting the sadhus from? God is protecting the sadhus from the greatest fear, which is not evolving. Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says that even one step on the path of bhakti, yoga, is saving us from the greatest fear. Of course, the greatest fear is not to die. It's not dying, it's not losing something, it's not being, defeated, because that's, not the greatest fear. The greatest fear is that we don't evolve, we don't develop a higher level of consciousness. That is the greatest fear. So by attracting people to the Leela, to the activities, the divine activities, and through giving example and precept teachings, the avatar is actually protecting the good people. Now, there are different types of avatars. Now, there is more information about the science of the avatars, especially in the Bhakti Shastra. We don't have much discussion about the avatars in for example, the Samhita, the Karmakanda, the Purva Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa, Upanishads, but there is a lot of information about avatars in the Puranas, Itihasas, and the yoga and especially the Tantra Shastra, the Agama and Tantra. This is because the avatar is establishing a direct personal relationship of devotion. The idea that the avatar is attracting people to devotion. It's not attracting just as an entertainment, but the point of entertainment through listening to the Leela, to watching the Leela, to observing and meditating on the Leela, is not just entertainment, is to actually develop a sentiment of devotion for God. Until now, everything clear.
Yes.
Any questions?
Nothing yet.
Okay. Okay. So we'll go on the different categories of avatars. Now, according to the Bhakti Shastra, there are different degrees of manifestation in the avatars, which is Swamsa, Vibhinnamsa, and Shaktyavesh. Now, Swamsa is directly the Supreme Brahman. Like the avatars of Vishnu, as we can mention, for example, or Shiva, or these are direct avatars of the Supreme Brahman. The Vibhinnamsa avatars are separate, like the Devas, for example. The Devas are Jivas, actually, but they're not necessarily Jivas. So it's difficult to understand because at a certain level of development of the potential of the Atman, it's very difficult to see the difference between the Atman and Bhagavan. Because the Atman loses the, how to say, distinction. The Supreme Lord, Paramatma, is the soul of one's soul. This is why in Vaikuntha, for example, it is shown that this Sarupya Mukti, the devotees of Vishnu who are serving Vishnu in Vaikuntha have the same form. Why they have the same form? Because they meditate so strongly on the form of God that they also take the same form, a similar form. So how you distinguish the Supreme Brahman from the Vibhinnamsa? The Vibhinnamsa don't have all the powers of the Supreme Brahman. They're still individual, or separated or distinct personalities. Now, then we have the Shakti Avesha. There's still less power. In the sense that Shakti Avesha can be any Jivatma who receives a special power, a special mission, blessing, in which the Shakti enters. So Shakti Avesha. Avesha is literally meaning entering. So the energy of God is entering into a Jivatma. So it's not that the Jivatma has developed itself to attain a almost God consciousness, but it's coming from the outside. The Shakti is coming from the outside and it's blessing the Jivatma. So there is an uncommon and usually temporary manifestation of power. Okay, this is clear until now.
Yes, but I have few questions on this
Please,
avatar
please.
part. So, as you said, like, the Vibhinansh can attain a level where there remain no distinction between the Supreme Brahman and Atman. So, still at
Not
that point,
exactly. It's not that there is no distinction. There is almost no distinction.
okay,
Almost no distinction. They're not as powerful as Swamsa.
okay,
They're still Vibhina. They're separate, distinct.
okay, okay.
Please continue.
Yeah, yeah, that if they are still Vibhinansh, then that's fine then.
Exactly. It's like as I said before, like the Vishnu Dutas who have this sarupya. They look exactly like Vishnu, except for the Kostuba, Srivatsa. That people can see. Okay, that's almost exactly like Vishnu, but it's not completely Vishnu. Otherwise, it would be Swamsa. Okay.
Okay,
So okay, so the avatar can usually manifest some leelas in whatever form. Usually, more often we have stories of avatars in human form. But we know from the Puranas that there are also avatars of Vishnu as Matsya, the avatar, fish avatar, and Varaha and Kurma and Nishinga. Some people want to see a kind of evolution of the species there. Okay, I mean, it's not important. The point is that whatever form God takes as avatar, that will be transcendental. It's not a regular, a normal fish, ordinary fish. It's not that God becomes a fish. God appears to be similar to a fish for a particular, mission, like Varaha, Kurma, like that. So we have to be always very careful not to confuse the avatar with an ordinary human being or ordinary being. So when we speak of Radha Krishna, we have first of all to understand that it's not to ordinary human beings. So they were married or not married is it's not that God has a specific separate family. The avatar can appear to have a specific separate family, but that's for the sake of the Leela. It's not limited by any identification or attachment. So in the story in the Leela, Radha was born from a lotus flower in Varshana, and father Vrishabhanu found the baby girl and took her to his house. And Radha was just a little younger than Krishna. And Krishna also was brought to the house of Nanda and Yashoda by Vasudeva without anybody knowing. So what happens is that Radha and Krishna were living in residing in very very close neighboring areas. So since the early childhood, there have been lots of stories, that are not found in Puranas or Itihasas, but only in the popular traditions. And at some point later on were compiled by the devotees who wrote books. Like, for example, we know, especially in the tradition of Radha Krishna in Vrindavan, we have the famous 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, especially Rupa, Sanatana, and Jiva, who wrote a lot of stuff. Now, one of the main topics in the bhakti are the rasas. The rasas, rasa means sentiment, feeling. The evolution of rasa is called bhava. Rasa is the taste and bhava is the emotion. So they're very closely connected. Now, according to the Bhakti Shastra, there are 5 main rasas. These 5 main rasas are the Shanta rasa, which is the neutral feeling, emotion, sentiment, taste in the relationship, which is just admiration. When you see someone who's very very nice, very beautiful, powerful, kind, radiant, whatever, this is the Santaras. We admire someone and say, wow, nice, this is the Santaras. Then more complex than the Santarasa is the Dasirasa. The Dasirasa is the feeling of service. It's a feeling that the devotee has, the attitude, the approach that the devotee has towards God as a servant of God. So it's pretty much a general, easily understandable rasa feeling. Then we have the further development of rasa with the Sakya rasa, which is the feeling of friendship, the approach or attitude of friendship. The devotee sees God as his friend. So this is the attitude, for example, of Arjuna and the other Pandavas, especially Arjuna, because he was of the same age of Krishna in the Krishna Leela. Or the Sakya rasa we can see in the young cowherd boys, the young gopas, who were playing with Krishna. They see Krishna on their same level. So they also serve Krishna. They do anything they can to, please Krishna, to make Krishna happy. They're very attached to Krishna. They want to make Krishna happy, even above their own happiness. But they see Krishna on their same level. Then the further development in the rasa is the Vatsalya rasa. The Vatsalya rasa, the word Vatsa is usually applied to a calf, the young, the young of the cow. This is the feeling that the cow has towards the calf. So it's a huge affection, great affection, motherly affection, fatherly affection. So, for example, the Vatsalya ras we have, especially with Nanda and Yashoda even more than Nanda in Vrindavan. And of course, these rasas can be mixed. For example, Balaram and the other elder friends of Krishna are in a mixed Sakya Vatsalya rasa because they feel older, so they think they have to protect Krishna. It's in the same way Krishna is behaving with them like a younger brother or younger friend. So he's, respecting, showing them respect, consideration, and even service. So we see, for example, in the dealings of Krishna, in the relationship with Krishna, with Arjuna, is totally Sakya. But with Yudhishthira and Bhima, because they're older than Krishna, Krishna is showing them some respect. And they're giving a kind of parental affection to Krishna mixed with the Sakyaras, mixed with friendship, because they're not so much older. Okay. And here we come to the most intimate type of relationship that is called the Madhurya Rasa. Madhurya means sweet. And the Madhurya Rasa is the romantic relationship, the couple relationship. And this is manifested in the relationship of Krishna with the gopis, as well as with the relationship of Krishna with his wives in Dwarka. So Krishna was married. He had wives later on when he moved from Vrindavan and after he settled in Dwarka. So he had many wives. And that Madhurya Rasa is called Swakiya Madhurya Rasa because it's official sense of belonging. This Swakiya Rasa was also the rasa demonstrated by the famous Mirabai, who, chose Krishna as her husband. So she was actually, going around with the deity of Krishna, and, she was behaving to Krishna as a wife is behaving with the husband. So that is a Swakiya Madhurya Rasa. Now, the relationship of Swakiya Madhurya Rasa is still very strong and has some part of Dasyam, some part of Sakyam, but it's relatively less strong than the Parakiya Madhurya Rasa. Because it's the Swakiya Rasa is a sentiment of familiarity. When we are always in the company of someone, the sentiments can be strong, but relatively. So when we have a secret relationship with someone, or we are separated from someone that we love very much, this separation that is called specifically vipralamba makes the feelings, the sentiment, the relationship so much stronger. Of course, if the relationship is actually genuine, if the relationship is not good enough to start with, it's not, staying apart will not make the feeling stronger, but it will just kill them. So we are talking about a real feeling, real strong feeling. When there is separation, the entire consciousness is occupied, obsessed by the object of our love. Now, the other side of the Madhurya Ras, even in the Parakiya Madhurya Ras, is called Sambhoga, which means the meeting, the union. If the Sambhoga is always there and there is no vipralamba, the feeling will become, tired. And, so some separation is required to make the feeling stronger. So this is the purpose of the story of Radha Krishna. So Radha Krishna were not officially married because Radha was married to one guy, one Gopa there in Varshana, who was called Abhimanyu. But this actually gives a lot of opportunities for very, what to say, attractive, entertaining stories. So if you want to tell the story of two people who, they married and they were always together, so how much you have to tell about that? It's not a very attractive story. But if you want to make a story, a film, or a novel of two people who love each other very much, but they're separated, or they have lots of difficulties because they try to be together and there is some obstacle to them being together, it's much more attractive, it's much more interesting. So in fact, the majority of the films and fairy tales and novels and everything ends exactly when the two lovers actually get together and stay together. That's the end. So and the classic conclusion is they lived happily thereafter. So the happily thereafter, what you have to say, okay, they were happy, they were together, but you understand the difference.
Yes.
Okay, any question?
Not till now.
Okay. Okay. So this is the situation, the way in which we should contemplate, meditate on the story of Radha Krishna. They were married, not really, but that doesn't mean that their union was not a good thing. There is a lot of confusion that has been accumulated on Hinduism and Indian society due to Abrahamic superimpositions. So we need to decolonize Hinduism a bit because what's a big deal? In the Vedic system, there were many kinds of marriage. There is a big list we can find, and every type of marriage, all these types of marriage, were actually considered legitimate. So there was no illegitimate union, and even more, there was no illegitimate child that could be born from such union. So in the Vedic perspective, any type of union, physical union, that was based on some actual relationship, attraction, relationship, was considered a marriage. Some marriages, some forms of marriage were more sattvic, more meritorious than others. But that there were no disgraceful forms of marriage. So we can start by, I don't know if you have seen, there was a nice article that came out, our friend Sai Arjun from the Hindu Human Rights website. They published an article that I wrote several years ago, about 10 years ago. It's still there on the website. So I was, elaborating on this subject because I think it's a very important subject, that can help people to better understand what is the original, genuine Hinduism, Vedic culture. So, of course, the most meritorious type of marriage is the Brahma Vivaha, the Rishi Vivaha, in which a man and a woman come together with the purpose of generating, procreating an exceptional human being. So, in this type of marriage, the union is what to say, focused on the Garbhadhana Samskara. Garbhadhana Samskara is a samskara that is done at the time of conception, when the child is conceived. Now, practically nobody does that today. I don't know anybody who has done that, was, been born through that. At the most, people from very high caste, very traditional, orthodox, blah, blah, they do the Garbhadhana Samskara after the conception, which is, like, okay, it's like you close the barn after the horses have gone away. Yeah. So, like, okay, it's a bit late for that. But okay, better than nothing, The point is that the samskara is supposed to create the conditions of consciousness for the parents to attract exactly that type of soul. So you understand, if you do the Garbhadana Samskara after the child has been conceived, who are you going to call? Zero.
Yeah.
So it's not, not a big point. Anyway, so so the marriage at that level, the Brahma Vivaha, Rishi Vivaha, is extremely difficult. And practically in Kali Yuga, practically nobody is qualified for that. Because the union is an extremely religious, spiritual, mystical union. It's something that is still vaguely remembered in the Tantra. When we meditate on the Shiva Shakti. So who does that? Nobody does that. So we it's not that because we invite people who are born from high caste, and they throw some they do some havan and everything, that this is the Brahma Vivaha. It's not. Arranged marriage is not automatically Brahma Vivaha. Brahma Vivaha usually is arranged in the sense that there must be a very perfect compatibility between the husband and wife. They must have exactly the same, the precise, perfect qualities, guna and karma. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So, problem is that today arranged marriage are based mostly on, money value and caste prejudice. So it has nothing to do with guna and karma and spiritual religious consciousness. So, okay, Brahma. Okay. Then we have the Raja Vivaha, the type of marriage that was usually the norm with the Kshatriyas. which is probably you heard about the Swayamvar. The Swayamvar is the type of marriage preferred by the Kshatriyas, in which the girl chooses her husband. She goes around and finds a man she likes, and then she says, okay, I want to marry this one. So she takes the garland and puts the garland on the man, on the boy. And that is usually considered the general Kshatriya system. Like, for example, we see Sita Devi and Ramachandra. We see Arjuna and Draupadi. We see Savitri and Satyavan. I don't know if you know about Savitri. You
I've
haven't
heard,
heard
but
of
I'm not able to recollect. I've heard this story a few years ago.
Yeah. So Savitri is famous as the perfect model of loyalty to the husband. So she's a perfect model of a wife, that she's so faithful to the husband. But she chose her husband against the advice of family and guru. So, faithfulness to the husband means faithful to the husband, not to anybody else. So anyway, this is the Swayamvar. Similar to Swayamvar, it's a Gandharva type of marriage. So the Swayamvar is a big official ceremony, but the same idea of choosing a husband by giving garland is self-sufficient. The Gandharva marriage doesn't require any official ceremony. It's already a marriage. So this is, for example, we can see in the famous story of Shakuntala. Shakuntala and Dushyanta, Maharaj Dushyanta, were the parents of famous King Bharat. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Shakuntala and Dushyanta met in the forest. Shakuntala was, she grew up in the house of the Rishi. Rishi treated her like his daughter. So he was around the hermitage in the forest, and she met Dushyanta. They fell in love. They married. I mean, they married with a Gandharva marriage. Means they just exchanged garlands and they were happy. And at some point, the king said, "Okay, I have to go back. I see you." So in the Vedic system, marriage is not necessarily monogamous, and in fact, the Ekapatni Vrata, the vow of having only one wife, is quite rare. So that's why Ramachandra was specifically considered special, because he did this Ekapatni Vrata. He just married Sita and nobody else. And also another thing, that in the Vedic system, marriage did not require cohabitation. It's not that people had to live together 24/7 for the rest of their lives. They were free to go around, to stay by themselves, to live together, but they were still married. We have, for example, the story of Arjuna. Arjuna married not only Draupadi, but also married, for example, Ulupi. Ulupi was a princess of the Nagas in the area that is still today called Nagaland, Manipur. And Arjuna was traveling and he met Ulupi. They fell in love and they married in the Gandharva system. and they had a son. His son, Ulupi's son, name was Iravan. And then, Arjuna just went back to Hastinapura, and they didn't stay together. So at the Battle of Kurukshetra, Iravan came up and went to see father, and went to fight to support the father, and in the Battle of Kurukshetra. So Iravan was one of the people who came to Battle of Kurukshetra. Another non-cohabitative son of the Pandavas was Ghatotkacha. Ghatotkacha was the son of Bhima and Hidimbi. Hidimbi was a Rakshasi that the Pandavas met during their exile when they were traveling in the forest. So, that Bhima met this this Rakshasi. The Rakshasi was so much in love, she fell completely in love with Bhima, and she actually made Bhima kill her own brother because she wanted to protect Bhima and the Pandavas. So Bhima, made her happy. He married her, and then he went back. Hidimbi stayed in the forest. Ghatotkacha became a big Rakshasa, but he was a good Rakshasa. And he went to help father in the Battle of Kurukshetra. So, also Arjuna married Subhadra, but Subhadra was not staying all the time in Hastinapura. She was, in Dwarka lots of time. She was mostly in Dwarka with Krishna and Balabhadra and Balaram. So, it's not that everybody was living together because they had to live together. And there were, people could have more wives, more husbands. It was not a big deal. So the fact that Krishna, Radha, and Krishna and the gopis were not exactly married officially, according to the, our contemporary dominant culture perspective, shouldn't disturb us. The problem is that it disturbed the colonial mind, because India was under the British Raj in the Victorian times. And the Victorian morality was very stupid. It's still stupid because some people still have that kind of morality. Fortunately, it disappeared mostly from the West. It's quite outdated in the West. I cannot say that the situation is much better now, but the point is that it was definitely not the mentality in the Vedic times. Okay, is everything is clear?
Yes. I have one question.
Yeah.
Like when we say about Radha, we say that it's like, kind of non-different from Krishna. Can this be said about gopis also, or are they Vibhinnansha? Gopis?
Yeah. Well, the gopis are expansions of Radha.
Okay.
They're not. The Bhagavata Purana explains that the most intimate gopis were direct manifestations of Radha. Others were jivas. Specifically, it says that some of the great rishis who saw Ramachandra in his, during the Rama Leela, they were very attracted to Ram, but because Ram was not interested in pleasing them romantically, then they got this blessing they would take at birth as gopis during the Krishna Leela. So there were lots of gopis, but there are also hierarchies of gopis. You know, you know from the Bhakti Shastra, we know that we have the Ashtagopis, the 8 Sakis, you know, that we have the Sakis, Banjaris, and Gopis. There are 3 different categories.
Yeah.
So some are directly just expansions, just arms of Radha. So Radha is the what to say, more concentrated form of the rasa, of the Shakti. But this idea of the Shakti, the avatar of Shakti, is more complicated. Because when we speak of avatars, usually we speak mostly of Purusha avatars. You know, like we speak Leela avatars, but usually they're in the form, the male form, because Vishnu usually manifests in this world in the male form, because the form is already Shakti. The form itself represents Shakti. So we only have, to my knowledge, this example of Mohini Murti, but that is a particular Leela avatar with a particular purpose. But in general, the avatars of Vishnu appear as what to say, principles of consciousness that are supported by the principle of action that is the Prakriti. The spiritual Prakriti. It's like Vishnu. Vishnu appears to have a male form, but the idea of the form is itself Shakti, it's itself female. This is difficult to understand, in fact, it explains why all women are considered manifestation of the Devi. Why not all men are considered manifestation of God. You understand?
Come again?
Yeah, this is a bit weird,
Yeah,
but
completely
you know,
agree.
I know. You know, like you see, for example, when you speak to women, usually in India, the tradition is to um, address women as Devi, right?
Yes, yes.
That is not done for men. You don't
Yeah.
address people saying Deva. Men using the title of Deva. Because the Shakti, the female principle, is not, what to say, an independent principle from the Tattva. It's the mother of the Tattva. It's a sister of the Tattva. It's the what to say, the how you say the other part of the couple, the spouse, we can say, but it's a spouse is not really consort, we can say, but uh, it's not Ishvara. You see, it's Shakti is Shakti. Shakti is not Shaktiman. Shaktiman without Shakti is zero. Shakti can exist independently, but it's always Shakti. It's always energy. It's not what to say, the the Purusha principle anyway, by definition. It's difficult to understand the difference between Purusha and Prakriti. I recommend, there is this chapter in Gita that is talking about specifically this topic, the difference and non-difference between Prakriti and Purusha. It is very interesting. If you really study, if you really understand it, it's making a lot more sense of everything in the world. Because in the world we also see a reflection of the tattva. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting. I don't know if I was able to explain clearly enough.
Yeah, some part, but yeah, I'll go through Bhagavad Gita, your commentary on that chapter. Currently, I'm in 7th chapter, so let's
Yeah,
read there in
I
few.
think that Prakriti Purusha is chapter 13.
Yes, I think
Okay.
14. Oh, yeah.
Huh?
13 or 14, yeah.
13, because
13,
14
yeah.
is yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, so yeah, we can talk again about that. If you have
Yes,
questions,
yes.
I'll be happy to answer already now.
No, no, I'll go through that because so that I'll have some picture in
Okay,
mind, then probably from
okay.
there we can.
So I think we can stop here for this time.
I have one more question from
Okay.
7th chapter. It is related with the commentary on verse 7.24, I think. Let me check once.
Okay.
It is that verse, I think. Avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyate mam abuddhaya.
We need to do it separately.
Okay.
We do now. I think we should close here, and we can
Yeah.
start immediately. But it's better that I have the verse and the under my eye. It's easier.
Sure, sure. So we can stop here and then maybe we can, if you have time, we can continue in this call itself. Then
Yeah,
let's.
yeah. Okay, just 1 minute then. Let me.